Hey guys, it's Jennifer with the Shooter's Mindset, and we are live with episode 424. We've got our co-hosts tonight. Greg, how's it going?
Good. How about y'all?
Going well. Can't complain. How about you, Corey? How's it going?
Oh, I'm shooting matches. I'm good.
How many did you shoot this weekend?
Just one. I decided to do a little practicing instead of going to a skirmish on Sunday, so just 22s.
You are slacking.
It's the off season, man. I can slack.
Oh, there is no off season. The match has already started.
God, don't start with that.
What's wrong with you? All right, and our guest of the hour and the person that everybody really wants to hear from, there's been a lot of buzz leading up to this show. We've got Kahl Harmon with us. How's it going, Kahl?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on tonight, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem. So, for anybody that doesn't know you, which I think there have been some buzz going on Facebook. Where'd this guy come from? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into shooting, and tell us a little bit about your accomplishment that you just accomplished.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Kahl Harmon. I grew up in Altaloma, California, up in the Sierra Nevada area in the mountains. Joined the military when I was pretty young, so that's constitutes the mass majority of my adult life. Spent most of my time in the Marine Corps, and then a little bit of time in the private sector, and then now the Army. So I'd say it probably started with the involvement in the sniper community. I've done that for about 10 years professionally, both in the Marine Corps and the Army. That probably fostered a lot of my interest and desire to shoot long range, but I'd say my long range career, if you will, really started when I was living in Texas. Texas has by far one of the most rich PRS shooting communities that I've ever been a part of. They're also incredibly welcoming and incredibly good. Like where I kind of started was with Texas Precision Matches, and they have a lot of really, really good shooters out there. And that's kind of where I learned to cut my teeth. And I actually shot my first 2-day match in 2021, and it was the Leupold Steel Classic, the same one that's coming up here in about 2 months. So that was my first ever 2-day. So I shot the 2021 season. For my first year doing it, I was fairly successful. I won a 2-day national match that year. I was the bottom of squad 2 going into the finale as well. Learned a couple hard errors my first year, mostly equipment malfunctions. And I had a trigger go down at the finale that year, so I really didn't have the season that I wanted to. But I ended up getting in contact with Scott Peterson early on in that year. Prentice was a really big help in that, and I know he loves to take credit for that as well. Reminds me constantly, but that's okay. I owe a lot to him for that. But that's kind of when my career started with AMU. Unfortunately, last year I had a whole lot of personal stuff going on, kind of pregnancy complications and family issues and stuff. So I shouldn't have been shooting really at all. But I tried to squeeze in a couple matches, and we thought it was best for us as well as AMU as a whole if we kind of focused on some of the team match stuff at the time. And they also had the inaugural grudge match that year, which was the Scout Sniper Association versus Army Sniper Association match. So myself and Tyler Payne shot that match together. And unfortunately, I sustained a pretty odd injury at that match. I tore my arm up really good and had to have a pretty significant surgery. So that knocked me down for a while. So this season was really my first season that I felt like I had a fair shake at this. And I wanted to make the best of it. So I told myself that equipment issues and other things that maybe I could have blamed prior or other shooters would have blamed prior just weren't going to be a factor, and I wasn't going to let them be an excuse. So I kind of put all my effort into making the best of the season, and it worked out pretty well this year.
So you just decided
I had some pretty lofty goals for myself, if I'm being 100% truthful with you. The golden bullet wasn't my plan this year, it was next year. So I did feel a little bit lost on the drive home because I felt like I was a little bit ahead of schedule in my plans. But, it's definitely not something that I'm complaining about in the slightest.
So you mentioned that you started in 2021, and with a lot of guys that we both know, Nathan Tungate, Keith Rudisill, and guys like that. Starting from, I guess, that first year, a lot of stuff that you've done and you've posted online has been about training.
Yes.
How did you change your training to go from I mean, you were always a good shooter. You were winning the top male category, but how did you train to get to winning the Golden Bullet a year early?
Um, it was kind of two parts. So some of it was absolutely marksmanship driven, and it
Okay.
had a lot to do with developing the skills necessary for that. So I feel like that is probably one part to your question. And the second part would be kind of a mentality shift. And the mentality shift, I feel like, is probably what won me the season. The
Okay.
marksmanship aspect was, that helped me win a lot of matches and have a lot of podiums this year. But to end up where I did at the end of the season was definitely a mentality shift.
Yeah, so we usually say PRS is like 90% mental. What did you change about how you thought? Was it how you approached a match? Was it just like you didn't care about anything else at the match, just the next stage? What was kind of the biggest thing mentally?
Um, so that's a good question. We actually talk a lot. Myself and Scott Peterson actually had talked a lot about the mental game, and I'm really fortunate to work at a place with a lot of people that are exceptional individuals. I mean, a lot of national
Right.
champions, Olympic champions, and I've talked with a few of them. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't really believe in the mental game aspect of things. And I've
Okay.
been told that that maybe is my mental game, because I think shooting is very simple. You just need to be present and focus at the task at hand and accomplish that task. I think if people are getting too wrapped around the mental game, they're maybe letting other things get involved in the shooting that don't need to be there, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
no. I mean, if you overthink anything, you can definitely screw yourself up. So that
sure.
certainly makes sense. I've done that before.
Oh yeah. And I've had that conversation with people that I'm like, was there ever any point in time where you wanted to hit one target more than the other? Or were you pulling the trigger with different intent to hit one target versus another? Like most of the time, I think you always want to hit every shot you take. And I think people fail to lose sight of that maybe. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where they lose the mental game. But I mean, we can talk about the marksmanship piece, but the mental shift for me this year, I shot well enough to be winning all year, if I'm being honest. That's how I felt, at least.
Okay.
I couldn't get it done the first half of the year. I mean, I had 5 podiums or something like that. I think I only missed one podium like the first 6 matches, but I couldn't win. I was always short, and it was starting to drive me crazy. And then I had set my sights on winning the Southeastern Regional finale this year, just because being new to the region and stuff and kind of wanting to
Right.
represent for the Central region. Like I felt like I wanted to kind of take that over here. And I won 6 or 7 matches that year. I went undefeated in the region. And then I basically went in undefeated for those matches plus 9/10 of the finale. I had 9 stages where I dropped 2 points, and I had a 3 or 4
Okay.
point gap on second place, and then I bombed the last stage. And it is what it is. I ended up losing it, but I realized that I was so attached to the outcome of matches that my happiness was kind of revolved around how I placed, not how I performed.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
And I
It's a
started to
miserable
realize,
place.
yeah, and it's not the same, right? Where you place and where you perform aren't the same. They're not synonymous.
Yeah.
I started to realize that if I just focused on being happy with my performance, and I don't care where I finish. And I truly believe that. And I had that mindset going into the last 4 matches really of the season. And I think that was kind of the turning point for me, where I didn't care where I finished. And I really meant that. If I lost by a point or two, I could have cared less as long as I was happy with the way I performed. To caveat that though, I pretty tough on myself, as far as my expectations
Really.
for performance. Yeah. So
Yeah.
because of that, I felt like generally if I was happy with the way I performed, everything else kind of buffed out like it should. So I think that was the biggest change for me is, one of those matches I lost, but I wasn't upset at it. I did everything that I could have to win it, excuse me. So going into the finale, that was really my only goal. I wanted to be happy with the way I performed. And I felt like if I didn't focus on others and I focused on myself and the way that I shot, everything would work itself out.
Yeah. I've been in both places where I attach it to the kind of the match finish. And then I will definitely say for anyone watching and coming up, really take that to heart and be happy with if you do well for the level of training you put in, it really is a better feeling. And especially at home, it makes it so much easier to come home and just be relaxed in the time you're not shooting.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And I'll give my wife that credit, actually. She didn't really arise to that conclusion, but she was the first one to kind of ask me a question that made me think harder than I normally would. And she asked me, she's like, do you even have fun anymore when you shoot?
Yeah.
She's like, if you're not winning, are you even having fun? And that kind of made me take a step back and think that, if that's what my happiness is attached to is winning, then maybe I need to look at this differently. I need to shift in the way I think. So
Yeah, I think there was one of the guys that used to be on y'all's team that said the worst place to be is at the range when you're not having fun.
oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so your former Instagram name, Grind
Yeah.
Hard, Stay Humble.
Yep.
What is that, and where did it come from?
It's kind of two-part, I would say. The first one being a lot of my background prior to getting into this sport. It's kind of it's been dubbed that silent professional realm, right? Where you hold yourself as a professional, you hold yourself to an incredibly high standard, but you didn't really need to tell people or brag about it. And I feel like there's a lot of people that, quite frankly, they can't really shoot or perform. And I encountered several people in this sport that I thought were really phenomenal shooters and phenomenal people, and they never had to tell anyone
Hmm.
that. They
Yeah.
never had to tell anyone how good they were. They really didn't have to introduce themselves in the sport, period. And that was kind of one of my goals is I wanted to shoot to the point where I didn't really need to introduce myself. And that's not from like a competition or arrogance standpoint. That comes from a lot of what we do in teaching and things like that, right? That if I have some of these accolades and accomplishments, what you say carries more weight, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just kind of the way the shooting world works, right? A lot of
Yeah.
what you say is based off your prior accomplishments. If I had to sum it up, it's let your shooting do the talking for you, right? Like shoot well
Yeah.
enough, your performance speaks for itself.
Yeah. 100%. It okay. So you brought up that if you've done well, people seem to take your word more seriously. That obviously cuts both ways,
Yes.
but I think in the case of you and the people you're talking about, it's someone that you can ask a question and they'll give you a straight answer and it's based on experience and it's
Correct.
not going to be smoke.
Correct. Yeah, and there's, especially in the world that we live in now of the kind of social media influence, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of new shooters or new competitors that maybe get misled because somebody has a large following or they have a good social media presence, when in reality, they've never accomplished really anything in the competitive realm. And
Yeah.
vice versa, there's people that don't exist on social media, period. And I mean, there's some straight killers. There's some of the best shooters out there in the world, you know?
Yeah.
So unfortunately with this job, you kind of find out you have that happy medium, right? Still working on that, I suppose.
Moderation is a skill.
That's very true.
So you're not a small guy. You seem to be pretty athletic. How much do you think athleticism affects shooting in long range and PRS matches? Do you think it helps with your mental clarity, recoil mitigation, getting in and out
Um,
of positions?
so yes, I do. I do think it helps. I don't think it matters as much as it should, if I'm being honest with you. But I think that's just the style of shooting we do. I wish it was more of an athletic sport. I really do. I wish it had some of the aspects of USPSA and three gun to where your physical abilities play into it. But if that was the case, I feel like PRS probably wouldn't be as popular as it is now. So, the sports kind of more in that barricade bench press realm, which I'm totally okay with. I still love the sport. But yes, I do think the physicality of it does help more than anything. If you're prepared maybe on all fronts, that kind of gives you more confidence. So if you're in shape, maybe that kind of adds more to your mental confidence than it does your shooting ability. But I still feel like it kind of helps you encompass that, kind of sound mind and body, but there are a lot of shooters that completely defy everything I just said. There's some shooters out there that are, they're not exactly physical specimens, but I mean, they shoot their ass off. So,
Do you think it's like one less thing to worry about? Like when you were talking about like mentality and just not worrying about a ton of stuff, like that physicality of you can make it through the day, it's less
sure.
to think about.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, if anything else, maybe I listen to a lot of podcasts because I have a pretty good commute to work, and I hear people
Okay.
talk sometimes about like nutrition at matches or hydration or staying focused. And I never really have that problem. And I think people that maybe do work out on a regular basis or push their bodies through hardships or things like that, they're a lot more in tune with their body. So they don't need to worry about that. Whereas I feel like some people, like shooting all day, may be one of the more strenuous things they do. So,
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think it directly affects my shooting per se. I mean, my rifle feels lighter to me maybe than it does to other people, and I've had people make that comment, but
It's a straight 125.
yeah, no, my gun's actually lighter than it looks, though. I mean, it's 20 pounds on the nose, so
Yeah.
it's not like 25-pound gun like other people's. I don't have any extra weight in the gun, period. And that chassis is the same chassis that I've used at like lightweight sniper matches. I just keep all my weight in the barrel, and that's my preference. But,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to defend myself here. It's still a very heavy gun. Don't get me wrong.
Taking it out west elk hunting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd humble you real quick.
God. Yeah, I think that snow humbled me more than anything.
Oh yeah, the altitude out there alone will it'll kind of bring you back a notch or two real quick.
Yeah.
Do we have any lives?
Oh yeah. I got a really good one.
You do.
So George Gardner wants to know how Kahl is liking the 6 Gay Tiger GT and why he chose it.
So I'll start with the last half of that first. To be frank, because people have asked, the GT wasn't a choice of mine. Part of showing up to AMU is they serve as an R&D department for the Army. So they may look at future options or things that may increase lethality through our military in the future. So sometimes we kind of serve as a research and development department for that.
Right.
But to be frank, before I showed up, the 6GT was a decision that was made. So I showed up and they're like, hey, this is what you're shooting. And to be honest with you, I'm still pretty enamored with the job as a whole. So the last thing I would do is complain about it. It has had a little bit of not drawbacks, but just learning curve, right? Because all I ever knew prior to this was Dasher. But I have had good success with the GT. I've had people ask me like what my caliber recommendation would be, and the more I've shot the GT, the more I come to like it. I mean, it's a phenomenal cartridge. It really kind of does everything the BR variants will, just maybe at a little bit lower pressure.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I haven't really benefited from the heavier 6 mils like some people have, or like the GT was kind of originally marketed as, maybe shooting those 110, 115 class bullets. I still shoot 105s. But it's awesome. I mean, I was talking with a buddy today about it, and he was saying, like, if you shoot Dasher, do you think you'd see any benefit? And to be honest, I think I have my GTs shooting as good as a gun can for this sport. I don't know if there's a caliber I would switch to that would give me an accuracy edge. I really don't believe that. So I appreciate George for developing a pretty solid cartridge.
Oh, that's funny. I like my GT. I've had no issues with it. Besides for the monkey behind the gun. If we could replace that, it would be an absolute hammer.
Yeah, especially with some of the big ammunition, manufacturers getting behind it, like with Hornady having a factory offering and stuff like that for new shooters that want to get into the sport. I mean, I always ask them, like, are you going to reload or not? Because
Yes.
if you're not reloading, I mean, it'll do about everything you need it to, and you'll get a little bit better barrel life out of it than you would the creeds. And it's a little less overbore, a little less kind of high octane. So, I mean, it's a phenomenal option.
Yep. So we're about at the midpoint of the show. Remember, if you're watching us live on Facebook, ask any questions you may have in the comment section of the video. We'll ask it live on air. Other ways to catch us, you can always check back on the Shooter's Mindset Facebook page. The videos stay up there forever. We usually upload all the podcast apps the night after the show. And then finally, everything eventually ends up on the Shooter's Mindset YouTube page. So that's a great place to look up all of our past episodes.
So you touched on kind of one of the jobs of the AMU in kind of a formal sense. But if you were to look at the AMU as it kind of existed within the shooting community, what do you think your role is as like a member of the AMU, and then what do you think the team's role is in the shooting sports?
So I'll kind of answer the first half of that, like our role at AMU, because I have talked to a lot of people that I don't think really understand what we do or why we exist, and I think it's important for people to understand that. Us being part of, us being a government asset, I think it's important that people know why we're there, that we're not just there, messing around on, tax dollars. So in the past, there's been kind of a leapfrogging concept that happens between military and civilian marksmanship abilities. If you look at like the late 90s time frame, the military and law enforcement snipers were kind of the pinnacle of precision in a lot of ways. And then as time rolled on and as optics evolved, the civilians have kind of jumped forward of them. And the military's really struggled to get ahead of the civilian world as far as marksmanship capabilities go. And there's a couple reasons because of that, one being because of the slow evolution of the military, right? You as a civilian shooter, if you want to change an optic, you go buy a new optic. If you want to change caliber, you change caliber. In the military, they don't have that option, right? It's a lot slower of an evolving process. Well, the reason that we exist, one of the reasons we exist, and if I were kind of giving you our spiel, right, AMU serves as three primary pillars: marketing, lethality, and competition. So marketing, we really don't serve in as much. That's kind of more of the recruiting brigade and, USAREC, but they do use our pictures or us on the podium or them, us holding hardware kind of as a marketing ploy or recruiting ploy. But more so we focus on the competition and lethality aspect. And to me, from my background in the sniper communities, the lethality aspect is pretty near and dear to my heart. So what we do is we go to these civilian competitions, we figure out things that they're using, these tactics, techniques, procedures, what they're using, whether it's equipment, bags, just simple things. And we find the applicability of that to our operational snipers or operational marksmen that we work with, and we show them what we found works. So we're split about 50-50 in our time between competition and between training. A lot of us on the action shooting team, for those that don't know, I'm on the action shooting team. So there's 10 of us. We have a team chief, an assistant team chief, and then we're three smaller teams within that. So we have USPSA, 3-gun, and PRS. So there's only about 10 of us in the Army or in the military really that do what we do. So we're pretty blessed and fortunate to have the job that we have. But in our individual disciplines, we get a lot of training requests from SOCOM and JSOC units because some of kind of the tip of the spear units that we have in this country, a couple of years back, the question kind of came up, well, who teaches them? Who teaches them to shoot? Who teaches them to be better? And really, we can't do 99% of what they do, but the 1% that we do, that marksmanship, we can do as good or better than anyone. So we're fortunate to go to them and kind of give back and show them what we're learning and show them how to be more lethal and how to do their job better, overseas. So that's kind of the big reason why we exist, and why we shoot competitions, right? So that part of it, I would say, keeps me pretty fulfilled. You know what I mean? Keeps me pretty full. I think if I was just shooting competitions, it would be different, but being able to teach and reach out to those guys and work with them. And I see a lot of them at the competitions too. And it's great. I think in a lot of these military communities, the shooting culture is becoming more and more prevalent. And people are starting
Yes.
to learn, especially at the big schoolhouses, right? Especially in 3-gun. A lot of these big schoolhouses and stuff, you're going to see the cadre there, and you're going to see them putting themselves out there and competing. And it's because the guys are willing to kind of let their ego down, right? You know, we always say ego's not your enemy.
Yeah.
And if you can drop your ego and go out there and, you know, get beat a couple times, eventually you're going to learn something. And those guys that are able to kind of lay their ego on the line and learn, when they go back to their parent units, I mean, they're mopping the floor with everyone. So
Yeah.
it's really good to see that they're adopting that.
From the guys that I've seen in 3-gun that are kind of picking that up from being in the military and then going back, what they're saying is it's not all applicable. Like running through a 3-gun stage, you're not going to do anything
Correct.
remotely reasonable, but you get to be a way fucking faster shooter. And who doesn't want a 1-second draw when you need a 1-second draw?
Oh, 100%. Like we always tell people too, like, you never rise to an occasion in a time of stress. You revert to the highest level of training mastered.
Yeah.
So when people think that, you know, when the time comes, I'm just going to be able to, you know, have a 1-second draw time and, you know, like 1-5 splits like this. If you've never done it before, it's not going to happen. That's not how it works. But yeah, no, you're right. Like a lot of it is gameisms. It can be a little bit gamey or gimmicky. I mean, we're shooting 20-pound 6 mils with massive mobile brakes that give you a slight TBI every time the gun goes off. Like, you know,
I've got a great picture that illustrates that.
Oh yeah. with Dylan.
Yeah, you and Dylan.
Yeah. I had a headache for like 2 days after that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. For those that don't know what we're talking about, Dylan Duncan is one of the members at Texas Precision that shoots. He's a horrible person, but he's a decent shooter. And kidding. Dylan's a great guy. But he's actually he's in a wheelchair, so he'll get out there and shoot a lot of the matches, which really leaves no excuse for anybody else not to get out there and shoot. But we'll kind of help him maybe get from some props to another if it's difficult for him or whatever. But he shoots a 25 Creed, unfortunately, with a brake on it. So kind of getting him into positions sometimes and standing next to him while he's shooting can be pretty taxing. But happy to do it though. He's a great guy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures I've ever had in a match.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of getting back on track with it though, like we were saying that, you know, some of it isn't practical, right? What we do, but the open divisions exist for a reason. I think USPSA is probably one of the best examples. Years ago, right? Compensators never existed on guns. Red dots never existed.
Red dots.
Their back wells never exist on guns. Now you have soccer moms with, you know, carry pistols that have dots on them. You know what I mean? Like, and those evolutions happen in the open division where there are no rules or very limited rules, and you let people push the boundaries of what's possible. So I think open always needs to stay that way. But we kind of have a phrase on the team that I've adopted at least, and we say ACE. So accuracy, consistency, efficiency. That's what we focus on. We don't focus on the tactics or really the kind of tactical aspect of it. That's not what we do. We just do marksmanship. So we'll show them how to do things more accurately, more consistently, more efficiently, and that's it. How they apply it to their job is totally up to them.
Yeah. So kind of being the marketing guy, there's a lot of people that want to know, especially if they're, you know, under 17, how do they get on the AMU? What's your best advice for someone like that?
I would say work on yourself first. So work on your own individual marksmanship ability. Make sure it's something that you want to devote a part of your life to, because that's what it's going to take. And then I would say make your presence known or make your intentions known. So we have social media avenues that they're more than welcome to reach out to. If they're ever at a PRS match, USPSA, 3-gun, I think I can speak for our whole team when I say this. If you see the jersey, like, come and talk to us. We're always looking. I mean, it's a very, very hard job to get, because most of the guys that get our job will do it till they retire, unless they stop performing to a certain expectation level.
Yeah.
Then they'll get let go, which happens unfortunately sometimes. But you know, as long as they stay on top, I mean, they can spend as long as they want there. So when those doors do open, though, we are looking. So if there are young individuals that want to do that, absolutely reach out to us. I mean, even if it's not something you want to do for your entire career, it really is an incredible place. I mean, we have young kids on our team that are, you know, really into investing, or 18 years old and buying a house, and, you know, just things that normal kids of that age are not doing. But, you know, within this small community, that's kind of part of the course, because everybody's such exceptional high performers. So if there are young people out there that really do want to get into this and want to be able to shoot for a living, chase their dreams and ambitions, and serve their country at the same time, absolutely contact us. I mean, we can let you know what it'll kind of take to get there, but truthfully, there's not really like a, if you do this, you'll make it. Most of the time, we'll tell them, like, win a national championship.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think everyone here has met more than one of y'all. You're probably some of the most approachable people on the range. Super laid back most of the time, super chill, always willing to talk to people. So definitely don't feel intimidated, even if you're like 6'8" and a gorilla.
I've been told that by people. They're like, yeah, you know, you just didn't seem, you know, you're kind of intimidating. I'm like, we're just shooting, man.
Yeah. We're getting lunch at like noon. It's a
Yeah,
pretty
like,
chill day.
yeah, you know. Yeah.
You have like RBF or something.
I guess, you know, I've been told I'm pretty monotone sometimes, so maybe that's something I need to work on. But 30-ish years of the same thing, I think I'm probably pretty stuck in my ways at this point.
Probably.
No, never change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about someone wanting to get into the AMU and what to do, but what piece of advice would you give to someone that is just a civilian, regular old soccer mom, whoever, that wants to get into the sport? What's the best piece of advice you could give them to get in and be
That
successful?
wants to get into the sport. You're saying just like an avenue to get into the sport, or like advice to kind of accelerate their growth?
Advice to accelerate their growth.
Advice to accelerate their growth. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. So I hear people chasing gear, chasing chassis, changing this scope, this trigger, this, that. I don't think it matters. And I know that's not a popular opinion, because
Preach.
people, it's not a popular opinion because people love changing gear, and there's a lot of cool stuff out there. And I mean, I want to try a lot of it too. And I do, but I just don't do it on my match guns. I feel like my match guns don't change. I have other kind of fun guns that I'll switch scopes on, triggers, I'll play with stuff, because I do think that's part of the responsibility of having our job, is having a lot of situational awareness on new products, new brakes, how they affect stuff. So like, as a professional, like, I try and take that responsibility that when things come out, I want to try them, so I have an opinion on them. But as far as my match guns go, I don't change stuff. So for that new shooter, like this season, I won the national championship on the original chassis that I got on the first PRS gun that I ever bought, and I didn't even know what the chassis was. I had no idea what it was. I just talked to people that I trusted that knew what they were doing, and I bought two identical Surgeon 591s. That one was a dasher, one was a 308, because they told me to have a practice gun and a match gun, so I did that. And they were in two XLR Envies, like the original Gen 1s from like 8 years ago. And I had that's the stock I still shoot, because I don't think I ever missed a shot because of my stock. And that's kind of my general rule of thumb with equipment. Unless a product or a piece of equipment is causing me to miss, I don't change it. So as long as it is capable of doing the job, I keep it. So for that new shooter, talk to a good shooter. And I tell people this sometimes because there's a lot of people in PRS that are very willing to give advice, which is great. But maybe not all of them are that qualified to be giving advice, if I'm being blunt. So I would tell that new shooter, talk to the people that are winning. Find those people that are up top, talk to those people. If you can, maybe sometimes the match setting isn't the best atmosphere to take their time, but maybe after the match, before the match, maybe reach out to them on social media and ask them like, hey, I want to get into this. What do I do? I would say, talk to that person and almost mimic their setup. Start with quality equipment with a good caliber and buy it in bulk and just shoot that and don't change. Like I know even for the finale, right? A lot of people kind of got on the 25 train, like the last couple. And I mean, like myself included, right? I have a 25 by 47 sitting and got about 500 or 600 rounds on it now. And I tried it. I went and shot a club match up in North Carolina just to see how I felt about the gun. And I've never missed so many targets strong in my life. And so I went back home and I pulled the barrel off and I put my 6 GT on and I'm like, well, if I get beat up in the wind, I get beat up in the wind, but it is what it is. So I think there's something to that, to keeping it simple, training with a caliber and really learning that caliber inside and out. I don't think that can be overstated. I really don't.
Yeah, I still struggle with comprehending the people that are changing calibers every other weekend. And, a lot of them are far superior shooters to me, but I'm like, wouldn't it be easier to spend more time behind the same gun and shoot this weekend, that the next weekend, and just have a good caliber and roll with it?
Yeah, some people too are, I mean, they're gun people, right? They're tinkerers. That's kind of the fun in it for them, is changing calibers. And I totally get that. And I mean, I like doing that maybe at club matches, but for like my big match guns where it matters to me, I try and be as painfully consistent with everything as I can. Like I shot the exact same load to the kernel this entire year. I did not change it. And I mean, I think there's something to that, using the same reamer and the same type of barrels and the same everything. It really kind of creates a repetitive nature in you that gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, when you find something that does it, just keep with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's say tomorrow morning you wake up and there's a crown on your head and you're the czar of the PRS. What's one major change you would make, and how do you think that would affect the sport 5 years from now?
Ooh, one major change, man. So that's a tough one. And I've talked about this with people a lot because I think there's two very distinct different categories of shooters in the PRS, right? You kind of have the that upper 1% or couple of a percent, whatever it is, right? Like the people winning matches. And then you have everybody else that pay the bills and make PRS exist and possible. And those people enjoy two different types of matches. So, I mean, I really enjoy the knockdown drag out matches where the winner's shooting in the 60s or 70%. But the truth of the matter is no one else does, really, right? And Prentice is a great friend of mine, so this is not something that I've never said to his face, but like his match style, I hate it sometimes. It drives me absolutely insane. Like he had, Austin cleaned his match, and it's like, granted, Austin was still the best shooter that day. There's no doubt about it. But like, to me, that's too easy of a match. But at the same time, like, it's hard to argue, right? Because what constitutes success? Because he fills his matches up year after year, and it's some of the biggest club matches in the entire country. So obviously, the guy's an incredibly successful match director, so he's doing something right, and I'm wrong. But
no, I don't think so.
But I do think there needs to be some type of standardization when it comes to how matches are scored. So I think I don't want to take power from individual match directors, because I feel like that would take too much away from the sport, and it would take away a lot of the uniqueness of the sport, right? Some people go to certain matches because you're expecting a certain style that's concurrent with that match director. Some people have talked about standardizing stages or target sizes. I think that's too much work, and that's too much of an expectation. But I do think maybe we should change to the NRL scoring. It's been called. I don't know what else it would be called, but it's the same scoring that they're doing basically for the IPRF. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that scoring platform or not.
Highly.
A little bit.
Yeah. Essentially, what it does is if you were to shoot a match like Prentice's last year, right? And let's say you took 45th place. Well, you probably still got 91% at that match.
Heck yeah, you did.
Yeah, right. Well, what it does is it would split your score so that your score, basically 50% of it comes from your percentage at the match, and the other 50% of it comes from your placement and the quantity of shooters.
Right.
And that's what would make up your match score. So in the same sense, it would punish that shooter who showed up to a really high scoring match, who got a high percentage but didn't place well, right? 44 other people shot better than him. But at the same sense, for the shooters out west, who, let's say you take second place, but you know, one of the studs shows up and beats you up pretty good, and you also get 91%, but you took second place out of 100 shooters. That would also offset your percentage, and you would get the other half of your score coming from your placement out of the overall pack. I don't think it's a perfect system, but to be honest with you, like I think it is. I think PRS is a lot better off right now than other shooting sports, and I don't think people outside PRS realize that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like I mean, you know better than I do, but like I mean, for people watching that are PRS shooters that don't know about that, can you talk about USPSA or 3-gun a little bit? Because PRS is the only people that actually have a season, and I don't think people understand that really.
Okay, so 3-gun, there's like 8 matches. You're lucky if you have a local scene. And that's kind of one thing that I think USPSA does probably better than the PRS right now. Their major matches, there's 9. There's a nationals and then 8 regionals. They call them area matches. But the locals, I mean, you can go to locals with 100 shooters in some places. Like if you're out in Arizona and like Mecca of shooting, there's something every night of the week. So on the top end, the PRS season, there's like a goal. So for guys like you and guys that are really competitive, there's something that you can work towards all year, where nationals is one match for us in USPSA. So it's a really cool thing. Where I think the PRS can improve is supporting those locals and doing what the tactical games is doing, and really like over the top being welcoming and showing how much fun the sport is on social media. Because whether we like it or not, their growth is unreal. I mean, Under Armour is supporting them as their title sponsor, and they're not doing it because they're not seeing an ROI. They're seeing an ROI. So, I mean, I love hard matches too. Like this year, through a friend, I heard that Robbie Latham said Handgun Nationals was the hardest match he's ever shot. I loved that match, and I did well. But I think you can ride a line on both. I think you can have it be hard, but I think that the test is if there's a target where any shooter at the match given unlimited time can't hit it, I think that's where the kind of the line is for me.
Sure.
I'm not saying they'll hit it in the match. And I probably shouldn't. But if you give them unlimited time, that's just where it is for me.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. But
Yeah.
like
But to your point,
yeah, like how you're talking about nationals, like for nationals, like you can lose every match all year in 3-gun. You can never win a match. You can never even take But if you show up at nationals and you win nationals, you're the national champion.
That's right. The winner take all thing. Yeah, it's interesting how the PRS does it. And kind of talking and looking forward to the cup, I know a lot of people keep wondering, is it the reset of the scoring on day 3, absolute zero, one person wins the day, winning the best, accumulation of the season. I think the accumulation of the season is a very interesting way for the PRS in particular, because of the unique challenges that the matches have. Like when you were talking about flavor, K&M and Colorado are 2 different locations, right? And 2 way different styles of matches. Oklahoma and Texas, right? Neighbors. One's better, one's the bigger brother, but they're 2 different styles of matches. You're going to get troop lines and you're going to get prone, and then you're going to get positional and movement. So I think it is a better way of deciding a champion of having that 300, 200, like you're saying, for our sport. And I do think when you have, let's say the finale comes out and it's in an amazing location and you want to go, I think that is something that guys say, I'm going to spend effort into 2 days now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Having a desirable location, like, because for a lot of people, right, like PRS matches are more of an event than it is just a competition.
Yeah,
Right. Like you look at some of the big matches and it's like, Impact is phenomenal. Like Tate and Wade are great about supporting so many matches and
yes,
really not even so much on the price. I mean, they do support along the price table. I'm not saying that, but outside of that, right. They do big
yeah,
barbecues. They do kind of catered foods. Like, I mean, he did some barbecuing at the finale. That was great. Like he does that, at a lot of matches, right? Like they do the crawfish at Texas Precision matches a lot too.
absolutely.
And so
Yeah,
I think for a lot of people, that kind of all-encompassing experience, I guess that's a better way to say it, right? It's an experience when
yes,
I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that we have an edge over other shooting sports a little bit, is that when you go to some of our matches, I mean, it's incredible. Like it's a great experience. It's cool
yeah.
locations. Whereas on the flip side of that, sometimes maybe it's not so much.
Yeah,
Because-
so I talked to Amy Lynn about this, right? And we talked in depth about how families need to be encouraged to come out. And that's why her and John Kyle bring the kids. And that's another thing that the tactical games, and I think the PRS have in common, is they're extremely family friendly. I'm not saying bring the kids up to the line,
right.
but there's a ton of other things going on other than just the shooting, where you can bring out the wife, you can bring out the kid, or you can bring out your kid to participate and you can bring out the wife to shoot with you. And that's something that no other sport has, is you can bring out your family and it doesn't matter if it's a daughter or a son. Like how many father daughters do we see? Probably more father son, more than the father son contest.
Yes, 100%. We see there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. They're phenomenal shooting pairs too. They're awesome. I want
I
you to
mean,
know, though, Corey, you're probably going to get me in trouble with this podcast, because if my wife watches this, she's going to be wondering why she's never been to a match.
okay, that's not a bad thing.
She'd be like, Corey says this is a family affair and everyone should be welcome. Why haven't you invited me? So,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
You shoot the
But I
gap
mean,
with her.
Yeah,
well,
that would be a really good test on your relationship there.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to say it. Like, man, if you guys survive that together, y'all are destined to just be wed for 50 years.
Yeah, definitely.
No, but back kind of to the positive note of it, the best Estes is not the older one; it's the younger one. And
Oh, yeah.
so, seeing that, I think, is inspirational for a lot of people that don't necessarily, young girls growing up that don't want to be cheerleaders. They want to be their own person.
Sure.
And I think it's really cool that there's a sport that they can do that in shooting.
Especially in the junior division. I mean, the girls dominate our junior division. I mean,
Absolutely.
with the exception of Jake, you know what I mean? He's kind of the only
Yeah.
man out there, but without him, I mean, the female presence there is pretty overwhelmingly better in
Yes.
the junior division, which is awesome. I mean, it's great.
And they're some of the most positive people at the range. Like they are always laughing and joking with each other, even if they're competing every weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I do think though that the season scoring that we have is good. A lot of people may think it's a broken system or things need to change. I don't think that's true. I think
Yep.
maybe qualifiers need to be a little bit more selective. I don't think
so?
that
In difficulty or experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if, going back to if I was PRS king for a day,
Yep.
I would probably make less qualifiers
Okay.
so that it draws bigger crowds and better competition. Because I mean, this last year, I think we had 40 something 2-day matches. And unfortunately, what you start to have is sometimes it's not a matter of how good did you shoot that day, it's who showed up.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's a problem. Whereas all the, for the IPRF league, they made it where you had to shoot 3 AG qualifiers this year. Well, there wasn't any gimme AG qualifiers on every single one of those match. There was 10 to 20 people that showed up that if they won the match, you wouldn't have been surprised.
Oh, absolutely.
And that
I
speaks
mean, you can do that.
level of competition.
Yeah, you could also argue that that would be any match where you could pick the top shooters. Like you and I both know who's going to win out of that list, right?
Sure.
So what do you think really grows the sport then? Like if you were to say like numerically, not just putting a number on it, but putting a demographic on it, how do you grow the sport?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of creating those communities, right? Like I don't have a lot of experience really outside Texas precision matches. I would say the closest one that I've seen outside Texas precision matches has got to be the K&M crew, where
Okay.
you have
Yeah.
like Shannon does, a lot of people kind of like to say bad things about Shannon. I've had really nothing but great experiences with him, and he's very good about opening his doors at the clubhouse there, and it's kind of an open bar on an honor system. Drop a couple bucks in there if you're making a drink. But if you go to those club matches the Friday prior, you can use the train up day. Like he'll normally have catered barbecue that night or some type of catered food. People hang out, they drink, they socialize. I think for a lot of people that aren't trying to make a career, aren't trying to win a bullet in the sport, that's what they care about, right? They care about having a good weekend. They care about seeing friends, having a welcoming environment. And kind of like you said, right, that family friendly atmosphere. Like, can I take I went to a match, it was great. Well, I take my buddy. Well, he had a good time too. Well, he's going to take his cousin next time. Then we decided to take our kids. And I think what's great too, is that like a lot of people now you'll see kind of the fifth wheel or the camper scene in PRS blow up, right? You're seeing more and more people do it because they're literally making it like a family affair camping trip. And I think that's great. Like if I have the option, I will always stay in a friend's camper. Like Ryan Adams has a bed in his camper that I'm pretty sure has like an indent from me laying in it this past year. But I mean, it's great, right? Because you're with friends, you're kind of consumed in that camaraderie for the entire weekend. It's just like a really good positive atmosphere. So I think maybe creating more of a community setting out of these matches and a club, like they belong to something, kind of creating that sense of belonging to their club is probably the answer to growing the sport rather than, having just shooting matches, which I mean, again, contradicting myself, those tough shooting matches though, I still love them. Like I attribute a whole lot of my success to the Anderson Outlaw crew and Aaron Roberts and his shooting.
Sure.
And I mean, he runs a small little match that for, a while was kind of invite only. And you don't zero the morning of, you don't do anything. You show up and shoot. And it was cutthroat. I mean, you had guys winning that match with like a 67% hit ratio. Like that's not fun, but I mean, it makes you a better shooter. But
he had a group of people, and he still does, that they like that. And I think you can do both, right? On the local side, you can have distinct, right? But if you're thinking like national level matches that really bring in someone outside of kind of the general what you would see for a PRS shooter, I think you can do both. I think you can make it a difficult competition but have all that extra. And it doesn't hurt anything to have the extra stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming out Friday night with your friends, I mean, that's a blast, like you said.
Oh yeah.
So
it's great. I'm curious, Jen or Greg, do you guys have like any good recommendations? Or obviously you guys probably ask people this question all the time. What's kind of like some of the better answers that you guys have heard as far as growing the sport or things that you think we could do?
So I agree with you on the environment of the matches. I've been to a lot of matches at K&M, and like the very first time I showed up, it was like, oh, here's all of my friends, we're friends now. And it's so welcoming. It's always a good time there. Prentice has been bugging me for a couple of years to get down to Texas. It's going to happen in 2024. I'll get down there and check that out. But I do think the key to the future of our sport is to, diversify, bring in, more children, more ladies, is going to be the biggest thing, because when the family can all go and shoot together, or when, you know, you have a youth shooter shooting and both parents there, and then they got the little kid running around, I think that's what is really going to help it. You know, I don't think that, you know, I don't want to say that, but yeah, I kind of agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
You know, the more people that get exposed to it and learn, like, wow, all these people that, you know, when you mention it to somebody, they're like, what do you do every weekend? Oh, I go out and I shoot stuff really far away. And, you
Yeah,
know, that
right.
sounds kind of scary, but when you realize that, you know, you got whole families there, you got kids jumping in mud puddles and the whole nine.
Yeah. I wonder, yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder who those kids are.
I
Yeah.
sure do wonder.
And I think that I think I'll get on my soapbox just a little bit. I think a lot of us say, like, well, they need to make a great event for us. They need to make it be a good event. And we do want good events, but I also think that we as people that shoot PRS need to, like, own it and want to help spread it, because that's what's contagious, is when it's welcoming, right? You go, I mean, I don't know that I've been to a match that I wasn't welcomed. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's one that I felt a little like out of place. But it was one of my very first. But I'm notorious for going to matches where I don't know anybody. And I just go and I squad with whoever. And I usually go home with like 8 new, really great friends.
Yeah.
Because they've been so welcoming. So, but there are some that are not as welcoming as others. So I think that the way that we grow it is by making it welcoming, talking about it, you know, in our day to day, about, you know, how fun it is, bringing friends, getting them to come, and then really welcoming them, right? Not letting one person on the squad be sitting over there by themselves while everybody else is, you know, talking about what are you going to hold for wind, like trying to include everybody that's on your squad, I think is a big part of growing, because if they have fun, they're going to come back. If they're not having fun, they're not going to come back, right? It's an expensive sport if you're buying it all out of pocket, and, you know, it's expensive. So, but it's also like a great sport. And I think that 80% of our field does a great job of welcoming people. But I think that's a big key of it, is, you know, making it a fun environment for everybody. And
Sure.
And I want to take that a step further, because it's very, very, very uncommon in our sports for somebody to show up and be like, hi, I'm new, how gun? And everybody not be like, oh, new person, let us help you. Like, that's always going to happen. Like, you know, besides for the very, very, very rare occasion. But how do we get the people to the range? You know, do we have a contest for 2024? And the PRS shooter that brings the most new shooters gets a prize?
So there, I can't take credit for this one. The first time I saw it was actually Aaron Roberts. So contrary to what I just said about his matches being absolute skull dragging matches, he actually had a squad, if I remember right, and it was the first place I ever saw it, where it was like the learning squad. So if there was 8 squads there, right, 7 of them are competing, and they're probably not the most friendly squads, because the guys that show up at those matches are tough, right? You know, they're trying to win. But he had a squad where maybe him and another helper, you know, like Ruben Chiat or someone like that would help him out. They would shoot like first and last, maybe as bookends. And then everyone that went in between, they like coached. Like Aaron would shoot it first and show them, hey, this is how I would do this stage. This is what to do. This is how I would manage my data. This is maybe I would hold over for this target or whatever. And it was like a lot more. And sometimes he would time them. Sometimes he kind of wouldn't, right? It was just a learning squad where they weren't necessarily shooting for score. They're just shooting to be involved. And I think maybe implementing that, I mean, you can't have that in 2 days, in my opinion, right? The 2-day matches they're called pro matches for a reason. But the club matches, I mean, they're every weekend, they're a fraction of the cost. Like, that's what they exist for, is to get those people in. So maybe having like teaching squads, or kind of like, you know, kind of like pro-am type squad at a lot of the club
Yeah.
matches. Like maybe that would be a good one because you get the people that are coming into the match for the first time. Like you're asking, how do we get those people? Like, hey man, you can come shoot the match. You know, you can pay your entry fee or do whatever else, or maybe a discounted rate. But like, you're not really competing against anyone. You're there to learn. You're shooting in a squad of people that are at your ability level. Like maybe doing something like that would help.
I 100% agree. So anytime we've had someone and we paired them with someone that knew what they were doing, they come back. And it came from Prentice before I was even with Texas Precision. Had a guy show up that everyone knew who was going to win the match. And he said, I don't care. Give me all the new shooters on the same squad and I will run them through. And he did exactly what you're saying. And all of them came back. He also won the match. So they
That
got
is
to pick the
awesome.
brain, and you know him, and I'll tell you afterwards. But they all got to pick the brain of literally the best shooter in the country at the time. And there's no other place, there's no other sport where you can do that. So
Yeah.
it is welcoming. And I think as long as you continue, like guys at the top continue to get back like that, 100%, there's no way it doesn't keep growing.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think 22 is also another way to help get people in, because you can say, hey, you can just show up at this match and you can shoot my gun. Whereas it's hard to do that when you're counting barrel life and, you know,
Agreed.
you got to let your gun cool down between stages. So it's a little harder in center fire to be like, hey, yeah, come and shoot my gun, unless you have, you know, spares, which I don't. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I think 22 is a great gateway drug.
Absolutely.
We have both the winks over in the comments. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude.
yeah, so Prentice is talking about loaner guns. Someone else mentioned they also have loaner guns at the match, which I think is awesome.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I do the same thing with my rimfire match, and you know, kind of how you were talking about how you have guns you like to experiment with, and then like you have your match winning guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
So loaner guns is such a, when you build loaner rifles, you can build a gun, but like you don't ever have to quit shooting your main gun because it's like, oh, here's a new gun I just built, and you can give it to someone to shoot. So
Yeah.
it's super fun. And then Ashley and your wife are conspiring what headphones the babies wear when they come to the next match with you.
Oh man. Whatever they are, they better fit tight because my son's a little bit of a wild child.
Shocking. Shocking.
We took him to a NASCAR race when he was real young, and he wore the headphones the whole time. So he did
Nice.
pretty good. He did pretty good with it. But I think if I took him to a match, though, I definitely want it to be like a suppressor match or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
those kids getting near those
Yes.
brakes. Those brakes are. I don't think people give those enough credit. How damaging those things are.
Do you train at the suppressor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually like kind of changed around brakes because I had trouble for a while, just with the concussion, and you know, you kind of like once you get that flinch, it's almost like target panic where it's super hard to break.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
I got the flinch for a while where I had to go. I mean, I dry fired for like 2 weeks straight, you know, and it was
Yep.
miserable. But you know, that was the only thing I could find to kind of break that, you know. So
Yeah.
but,
You can't escape these. Everyone's asking. They're the gear questions. So just give a quick answer.
yeah, absolutely.
Chassis.
Either XLR or MPS.
Okay. Barrel.
I prefer Bart lines if I
Okay.
can, but I've had great barrels in almost every company.
Cool. What optic?
Right now I'm shooting a Night Force 70-35 Tacker and a Mil C. I'm been fond of Schmidt's. The Gen 3 razors were fantastic.
Okay.
Just right now, that's what's working for me.
Okay. We hit up the Caliber 6 GT. This was a listener question. Did you buy more goats or a new truck with the finale winnings?
Oh man, no, I did not buy any more goats at all. My goats are on their own, out of control. Actually, as we speak, in the last 2 days, we have, I think, 3 or 4 goat babies that have just been born, and we have 2 more that are about to lay kids any day. So my goats,
Nice.
my goats are out of control right now. But no. No,
So-
my truck works fantastic. It's actually I had this
Oh.
probably the most passively disrespectful thing anyone said to me in a while. Like for everyone that
Only
doesn't know,
because I knew it would hurt, dude.
oh yeah, it works. I'm not much of like a show person or like a possessions person, so if it works for me, I just use it. So I
Yeah.
have like an '04 Ranch truck that's just it's a 5.3 Chevy. It runs great, horrible on gas. You know, you get over 65 and it feels like you're re-entering the atmosphere. Drives like I'll drive it to K&M from here, which is like 7 or 8 hours. And I shot K&M one week in South Carolina the other weekend, which is like, 5 or 6 hours in the opposite direction. This old timer looked at my truck in the parking lot and he's like staring at my truck and he's like, "Did you shoot Tennessee last weekend?" It's like, "Yes, sir, sure did." He's like, "Do you trailer the truck here?" It's like, "Oh, no, I didn't. I
Wow.
drove it." Like, and he just
That's
kind of nodded and was like, "Oh yeah," and just kind of walked off. I was like, "Wow, I didn't think it was that bad."
Ow. I'm sorry.
I was like, "Man, the truck can hear you." Like,
don't hurt the foot.
Oh.
So does she have a nickname?
Yeah, it does, but it's not very podcast appropriate.
All right. Last quick one. Are you going to hunt this year? You have time for that?
Yeah, I've actually been hunting the last couple nights, but just meat hunting right now.
Okay.
Where I live, we're fortunate to have. I live outside city limits, so I actually live on county land. So we
Okay.
have a little kind of homestead out here, and all my neighbors have like really big agriculture plots and stuff. So they get a lot of the deep predation permits from the county and the state for deer and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not really hunting necessarily. You know what I mean? It's more
Filling the
aggressive.
freezer.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty bad sometimes, but I've been trying to get a good one this year. I normally make it up north. My brother lives up in Montana. Both my brothers used to live up there, so I make it up there about every year, every other year. I really try to. This
Okay.
year though, I wanted to make a conscious effort to just focus on the finale and stuff. So kind of chose to forego that, but my brother and I were talking about it. Next year, we really need to kind of hammer down, do our best, try and because the kids are going to start to grow up. I have my son's 16 months old right now, and then
Okay.
my nephew is it's about 7 months now. So our kids are going to start to get older, and once they get older, we're going to start wanting to include them on hunts and stuff like that. And we're going to have to
Yep.
be a lot less selfish with it. So some of the harder hunts, I think we're going to try and chase the next couple of years, hopefully.
Nice.
But,
Cool.
yeah, absolutely.
So you've kind of busted out into the PRS scene and like you kind of killed it. Like you got the golden bullet. You've done it. So where do you go from here? What are your goals now? I know you're going to AG Cup in what, a week and a half?
Yep, next weekend. Yep.
So what are your goals?
So the season's not over. So for me, like we still have the AG Cup, so that's all I'm really focused on right now. And I'm probably just gonna continue next year like nothing happened. I know that sounds strange, but normally what I do every year is whatever trophies I get, after I get them, I package them up in a cardboard box and I put them away. And it was kind of something somebody told me a long time ago that if you feel like you have something to celebrate about, then you have nothing to work towards. So I told my wife a long time ago the first and only trophy I would ever put up would be a golden bullet. And it was. That was the first trophy I ever put up in this house. I had all these other ones sitting in a closet, and the golden bullet was the first one that I kind of put out. So I'm going to give myself till the AG Cup to enjoy it. And then after that, I'm probably going to put it away with the rest of them. Because I feel like if I kind of relish in my accomplishments too early, I may lose some of that hunger. And I don't think that's constructive for my goals. And, I've set some extremely lofty goals for myself. I'm very fortunate and blessed to do what I've done this year and win. And I'm not unaware of that at all. I know that if we shot that match 9 more times, we would probably have 9 different winners. And that's truthfully how our sport works out, right? There's there is a little bit of a luck factor to it sometimes. But I choose to kind of ignore that as much as I can. I think you kind of say, you know, well, I got a bad draw, or I got a good draw, or I got this, I got that. You're kind of not accepting responsibility for things.
Yeah.
So the more that you can say it was in my control, that was my fault, I should have done better, I think that works out for you in the long run. So I'm really looking forward to chasing it next year. One goal I had this year that I fell short of is I wanted to go into the finale with a 300, and I went into it a little shy of that. I went in with like a 298.9 something. So that's going to kind of be my first goal next year, is getting my 300 and kind of moving on from there. So
That's awesome. Do you think going into the AG Cup, this will be your first AG Cup?
yes, ma'am. Yep.
Do you think that it's going to be different pressure with the money on the line and everything? You know, Ben cleaned it last year. Do you think it's going to be different, or do you think it's just going to be another match?
I'm looking forward to it. But I don't think anything I've accomplished this year factors into the match at all, if that makes sense. I mean, there were several people at the finale that I thought were going to be a real threat that had just horrible weekends, you know, and there were other people that they shot their ass off. So I don't think the AG Cup's going to be any different. I think if anything, excuse me, some of the people that didn't perform the way they wanted to at the finale, that kind of maybe lit a fire in them. And I think they've probably been grinding this past month getting ready for the AG Cup. So I think there's going to be several people there coming out on fire. But I do think this is a sport where if you try too hard, that's also a detriment. So there's a fine line there that you have to toe. But I'm really looking forward to the kind of being on your own aspect as far as your shooting plan goes. There was one stage at the finale that was that way, and I thought it was super interesting. Just you weren't allowed to talk about when, discuss when, do anything. And there's a lot of shooters that thrive in that environment, and there's a lot of shooters that really don't do too well when that happens. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think Clinton House, from what I understand, they're doing part of the match on a range that like no one's ever seen. So I think that's really awesome that no one really has a home field advantage there. It's a venue no one's ever seen. I think that'll be really cool. But I don't know. I'm excited to just be a part of the AG Cup. You know, like the first year I ever shot, I thought it was probably inappropriate, I guess, for me to shoot it. You know what I mean? Like barely trying to get my footing in the sport. And then last year, like I said, I just, really wasn't shooting at all. So this is really like my first chance at doing it. So I was pretty excited to chase it. And I haven't looked at the season points again, but I think they're pretty tight right now. And I don't really know how that factors in to the day 3 or day 2 cutoff or whatever it is. But from what I understand, when we get there, everyone starts with 0. So we're all going to be on an
There
even.
you go.
Yep.
Oh.
No math necessary.
Exactly right. It's going to be on even. Everyone's going to have a 0 when we show up there.
Yeah, it's definitely always a fun match. I've been shooting out at Clinton a lot this year. They've done an awesome job of building up their PRS range. But I was out there 4 weeks ago, and we're getting ready to live stream this whole match. So I was like, hey, can I go out and see this secret range so I can make sure that our Starlink has enough range and this, that, and the other thing? And they're like, you can't even see the range yet. We haven't built it. There's still corn there. So nobody has had a chance to see this.
Oh boy.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you wear some good ears, so this way when Jennifer's up behind you, all right, this next shot is worth $30,000. It's all down to one trigger pull. $30,000 for this.
I thought about people were going to lynch me last year for that.
Yeah, luckily Ben's a real nice guy. I don't think he would hold it against anyone.
He said he everybody that has fussed about, I can't believe you're standing there saying that. The shooter is like, I didn't hear.
Yeah.
They're not, they don't.
Half the time people can't hear when they yell impact or time or anything else, or when the time goes a lot, like let alone anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's
But-
right. Do we have any lives?
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we're good
it's
on the
mostly
lives.
just yeah.
Everybody was really excited about this show and to hear kind of what you had to say. So,
Yeah. No. If there is one thing I was going to say, a bunch of people have asked me about a drill that I spoke of on a prior podcast, and so I haven't forgot about anyone that's asked about the drill. I'm gladly going to post a link to it for everyone. But I talked with work and I gave them kind of the opportunity, if they wanted to make a video out of it, like an instructional video where I'd actually explain how to shoot it and stuff. So we're actually in the process of doing that. So as soon as I get that,
Sweet.
yeah, I'll get it posted and then I can send that to you guys as well if you'd like to push it out to people. I mean, it's not a very complicated drill, but it's something you can use with a tripod or a ladder or anything else, and it's a 100-yard paper drill, and that's what I shoot several times a week, and I attribute a whole lot of my success to that.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
Send it over. We'll post it up on the shooter's mindset.
yeah, absolutely.
Greg Bell commented that he blamed me for his bad performances. There, 2 years ago, I mean, he was shooting well, but every time I came around and videoed a stage, he didn't do so well. And so he was like, Miss Jennifer, could you please not come video me tomorrow?
I could hear that in the Greg Bell, Arkansas accent.
I also heard that in his voice.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I think as soon as you said that, everyone heard that in Greg Bell's.
Yeah.
Yes. In the Southern accent, but it was funny. Yeah. That year, actually, everybody, it was like people would be doing well and I'd go and commentate and we'd be recording them and they would bomb it. Like everybody was bombing when I was like, gosh, I feel bad. I don't want to get people's bad performance on TV, but when you're doing it live, you can't rewind if they're not.
No, I think that is something
Having a good stage.
I think that's something that Ken's doing really well. I know they hired the I feel like an ass for not remembering his name, but they hired the new kind of marketing guy that's doing a bunch of their social media and stuff. That's always out there videoing and stuff for the PRS. Super cool guy, and is one of the K&M matches. I can't remember his college or gap card. He asked me, he's like, hey, do you mind if I video you? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And it was in this Connex. And I'm like in the window ready to shoot. And I look over and this camera lens is like 18 inches from my face. I'm like, oh man. Like luckily it didn't go too bad, but I was like, man, man, you're like all in there, bud. Like, jeez.
I don't even get that close. We try and stay back out of the shooter's way and out of the peripheral. I try to not get right in the peripheral because I know that could be unnerving to a lot of people. So we try to not be too inconsiderate, but we do want to get good footage and everybody be able to see it so that, I mean, the whole point of us going and videoing is not, just for glory for whoever. We want to help spread the sport and get to see it. They're like, that's what you do? Wow, that's cool. When they actually see what it is and see the competition. And so it's neat. And I hope that it reaches people that maybe are not just the PRS. Like we want everybody to share it. Not because, we want to get all the views. I mean, we would like to get views, but we don't make money doing this, so it doesn't really matter if we get views or not. But it's a matter of if people share it, then their friends who don't shoot will see it. And, maybe out of the 100 people that see it, 3 of them want to go try it. So it just kind of helps grow the sport if people will share it outside of our little bubble of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for you guys doing that and filming it, I mean, I know USA Shooting and some other people kind of film it or make videos about it, but it's very kind of after the fact or not nearly as intimate as you guys do it. So, I mean, if it wasn't for you guys doing it, I don't know if there would be much coverage on it at all. It probably wouldn't be as big as it is, so I think you guys can take a little bit of that credit for sure.
Well, thank you.
We enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
It's fun. If I could make money doing it, I'd quit my job and do it all the time, but it doesn't really pay the bills. So Gotta keep my day job. All right. Well, I think we can wind it down to shout outs. We will start with Corey.
So I'm going to shout out Kahl. So kind of being involved in running matches, you see a lot more than people think you see. And you have always been the guy that does the right thing, no matter who's looking and no matter the reason. So I know you won't say it, but when win next year, I'm gonna wear the Bears outfit and we're gonna do like that whole SNL skit with like a three-peat or a four-peat. Because I genuinely think of all the people that I've seen at the range, I've been ecstatic because you won that match.
I appreciate it, brother. That means a lot, man.
All right. How about Greg?
We'll just shout out Hunter's HD Gold up there for my blind self, and PDC Custom for awesome rifle chassis.
All right. And what you got, Kahl? I'll let you go. You got any shout outs?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my employer there, the United States Army Marksmanship Unit, for giving me the career that I have and giving me a phenomenal opportunity. I truly believe I have one of the best jobs in the world, and I hope I represent the uniform well and kind of do what they ask of me. I also like to shout out to Joel Rousseau over there at Terminus. I really don't have, the United States Army Marksmanship Unit is my sponsor, so I don't have any sponsors, but of all the companies I've kind of dealt with, he really sticks out. He's a phenomenal guy. And thanks to Texas Precision Matches, I don't know if it wasn't for them and me living where I lived and starting off in that community and meeting Prentice and Corey and everybody else, pretty confidently say I wouldn't end up where I'm at now. So I appreciate them and what they've done for me as well.
That's awesome. They're good people. Even if Prentice asks 5,000 questions just to log up our jam up our comments.
Prentice is probably the first phone call I receive in the morning on my way to work at least 3 days. At least 3 days out of the week.
That's what happens when you answer that 6 a.m. phone call. He knows you're up at 6 a.m.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for my shout outs this week, I am going to shout out Vortex Optics, who is going to be helping support us to provide coverage at the AG Cup. So the coverage that we provide there will be brought to you by Vortex Optics. Got my tripod and spotter all ready today with the new fluid head to try and be not jerky with the footage. So we will have target cams and be showing hits on target as much as we can, depending on how big of a swing it is and how fast the shooters are, because some of them are really fast and I might not be as fast as them on getting on target, but we will definitely try. And so we're getting ready for all of that coverage. So I do want to shout out Vortex and Foundation, who are helping support us in this endeavor, because we couldn't do it without help from others.
And to you guys, if there's ever anything too that we can do for you guys, or anything we can ever do to help grow the sport, help spread things, help you guys in any way, Corey has my number. Don't be afraid to reach out to us, please.
Awesome.
Will do. Thank you much.
All right. And with that, it'll be a wrap for episode 424. And we will see you guys next week. And we'll be talking about AG Cup.